Remember, Nissan. They were huge in the car scene with the 240Z and held 8% of the US market. Then, bam! Sales tanked, debt skyrocketed, and their CEO made a crazy getaway. The company was left bleeding cash, a shadow of its former self. How did a giant fall so far, so fast? And can it ever truly recover? This is the dramatic story of Nissan's rise, its catastrophic collapse, and its desperate fight for survival. Let's rewind to the 1970s. Back then, Nissan was known as Datsun in America, and they absolutely exploded onto the scene with the 240s. It was a revelation. It offered the thrill and style of a British sports car, but without the constant breakdowns and oil leaks. It was affordable, reliable, and seriously cool. The 240Z became the fastest-selling Japanese sports car ever, with over 86,000 units sold by 1979. It wasn't just a car, it was a cultural icon. Then came the oil shocks of 1973 and 1979. Suddenly, America was desperate for fuel-efficient vehicles, and Nissan was perfectly positioned. While Detroit was still pushing massive gas guzzlers, Nissan delivered compact, efficient cars that didn't sacrifice fun. The Maxima was dubbed the Japanese BMW for its sporty handling and premium feel. The Sentra CR became a legend in the compact performance world. By 1985, Nissan was a powerhouse, selling over 830,000 cars in the US and going head-to-head with giants like Toyota and Honda. Nissan carved out a unique niche. While Honda was famous for its incredible engines, and Toyota was the undisputed king of reliability, Nissan stood for something different. Bold, exciting design combined with everyday practicality. They were the stylish, slightly rebellious choice in the Japanese trio. For a while, it seemed like their upward trajectory was unstoppable. But beneath the surface, the seeds of crises were being sown, leading to a near-total collapse that required a miracle to fix. That miracle arrived in 1999, and his name was Carlos Ghosn. Nissan was in a death spiral, drowning in over $5 billion of debt. In a landmark move, French automaker Renault stepped in, acquiring a 36.8% stake in the struggling company. In return, Nissan got a 15% non-voting share in Renault, but more importantly, they got Ghosn. As an outsider, Ghosn was not bound by traditional Japanese corporate culture, which often avoids drastic, painful changes. He was exactly what Nissan needed. Dubbed Le Cost Killer, Ghosn launched a ruthless revival plan. He did what was previously unthinkable in Japan. He slashed 21,000 jobs, closed 5 factories, and cut costs by a staggering 20%. The moves were brutal and flew in the face of Japanese business norms, but they worked. In just 1 year, Nissan swung from losing billions to a $2.3 billion profit. By 2003, they were boasting impressive 10% profit margins. The alliance with Renault created huge synergies, subbing another $3.3 billion through shared parts and platforms. With the finances stabilized, the product magic returned. Nissan launched a string of hit cars: the stylish Murano crossover, the thrilling 350Z sports car, true successor to the original Z, and the groundbreaking Leaf, the world's first mass-market electric vehicle. Nissan was back. Glory was restored, and Ghosn became a legend. A business icon so famous, he was even featured in a Japanese manga comic book as a superhero. It was a stunning turnaround, one of the greatest in automotive history. But this incredible success story was about to take a dark and disastrous turn. The turning point came in 2011 with an internal strategy called Power 88. The goal was ambitious, perhaps too ambitious. Capture 10% of the US market share and achieve an 8% profit margin. But the focus shifted almost entirely to that first number market share at any cost. This growth at all costs mentality would prove to be Nissan's undoing. To pump up sales numbers, Nissan leaned heavily on fleet sales to rental car companies. By 2016, these low-profit sales surged by 42%. They slapped massive incentives on their cars to move them off dealer lots, offering discounts of around $3,400 per vehicle, double what Honda was offering. They aggressively expanded their dealer network, even in areas that couldn't support it. They even acquired a 34% stake in a scandal-hit Mitsubishi to further boost their global volume. And on paper, it worked. They hit a staggering 9.7% market share. They were selling more cars than ever before. But it was a house of cards. While the volume was high, profits were tanking, dropping 9% in a single quarter. They were sacrificing long-term health for short-term vanity metrics. Worse, while the company was obsessed with volume, the products began to stagnate. The once exciting Ultima sedan became bland and uninspired. Their SUVs failed to stand out in a crowded market. Even the pioneering Leaf EV was left to languish with an outdated design and limited range, just as the rest of the industry was finally waking up to the electric revolution. They largely ignored the booming hybrid market that Toyota was dominating. Then, in 2018, the whole facade came crashing down. Carlos Ghosn was dramatically arrested in Tokyo on charges of financial misconduct. The scandal was shocking, but what followed was even more surreal. His daring escape from Japan while out on bail, smuggled onto a private jet inside a large audio equipment case. The chaos revealed deep-seated tensions within the Renault-Nissan alliance. Many within Nissan felt the partnership had become unbalanced, a French takeover in disguise, and the internal revolt that had been simmering for years finally boiled over. The hero had become a fugitive, and the company he'd saved was left in turmoil. The collapse accelerated with breathtaking speed. In 2019, Nissan posted a massive $6.7 billion loss. The following year, sales dropped by a jaw-dropping 32%. Between 2017 and 2022, the company's global sales declined by 40%, and its stock price plunged by 70%. It was a bloodbath. The leadership team Ghosn had put in place was ousted in a wave of infighting and corporate politics. One senior executive called it a man-made disaster. The company that had once challenged Toyota and Honda for supremacy was now fighting for its very existence. By 2023, the situation was dire. Facing another potential $4.3 billion loss, a new plan was put into motion. This time, the focus wasn't on reckless growth, but on stabilization and survival. The company announced another round of painful cuts, 20,000 more jobs, and a more realistic production target. The new strategy, led by executives like Ivan Espinosa, was to shrink to survive. They also committed to the future, promising 27 new electrified models by 2030, a reduction in global factories from 17 down to 10, and a more realistic production target. The new strategy, led by executives like Ivan Espinosa, was to shrink to survive. They also committed to the future, promising 27 new electrified models by 2030, a clear signal they were finally getting serious about EVs and hybrids again. And remarkably, signs of life began to appear. Even without major new models on the lots, U.S. market share started to creep back up, from a low of 4.2% to 5.6%. Dealers, once demoralized, started to feel a renewed sense of hope. The troubled alliance with Renault was also reset, rebalanced to give Nissan more autonomy and control over its own destiny. The saga of Nissan offers two powerful lessons. First, growth at all costs is a recipe for disaster. Chasing vanity metrics like market share while ignoring profitability can destroy even the strongest companies. Margins matter more than volume. Second, it shows the power of an outsider. Carlos Ghosn, for all his eventual faults, was able to force through a brutal but necessary reset that a deeply ingrained corporate culture could never have accomplished on its own. Today, Nissan is still on the mend. It's smaller, leaner, and definitely humbled, but there's a spark of hope. The road back to its former glory is long and uncertain, but with a renewed focus on smart, sustainable growth and exciting new products on the horizon, the legendary brand that gave us the car might just have a second act left in it. The underdog fight has begun. Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more deep dives into the world's biggest brands.